what about setting up the charging system at home?
Yeah.
Can I plug this into my 220 dryer outlet, or do I have to do something a little more complicated?
Yeah, really good question. It's the most asked question, really. And one of the simple solutions is that you can take a 110 plug with any of these cars and plug it in instantly to any outlet in your house, and you can actually get a charge from that. The problem with that is that it's a slower charge. Now, for most people, overnight, that'll be fine. It takes, 10, 12 hours to actually get a decent charge on it. But if you really want to be able to use the cars to its full potential, an overnight charge at 220 is going to be a whole lot faster, and really it's an 8-hour charge to get a full charge on a Nissan Leaf at 220 because it uses a 3.3 kilowatt charger. And 220, yes, can come from a dryer plug, basically a 30-amp circuit is what a dryer plug is. But the new standard that they put together, level 2 charging at the lower end, which is a 16-amp circuit for this Nissan Leaf, is a 40-amp circuit with a level 2 charger. Now, that level 2 charger will actually go up to 32 amps. But the Nissan Leaf chose to have a 3.3 kilowatt charger, not a 6.6 kilowatt charger, which is what they should have put.
So it's not quite as fast as it could be.
Not quite as fast as it could be. But on the other side of that, they have something called a quick charge port, which will actually give you 80% in under 30 minutes.
Wow.
But those chargers are about $15,000 and will only be set up publicly. They won't be in anybody's home because they take a huge circuit. So.
Is it the level 3 chargers? Or?
That's the level 3.
Oh, okay. Okay, so level 1 sort of just plug it in.
Level 1's a 110.
What is in your wall? Level 2 is where you get a higher upgrade 220 charger.
16 or 32.
So I figured I have to keep my garage door open to plug it into the dryer plug and the cat will get out. So that's not good.
Right. Yeah.
And besides, it's going to screw up my heating inside the house and negate the energy benefits. So I'm not an electrical engineer. How do I get this charger into my house?
Yeah. Well, there's several installers. Nissan, if you were to get a car through them, will hook you up with Air Environment in this area, which is a company that will manage to do the install for you. Most people have found it's lower cost if they just buy the charger outright and have their own electrician put in the circuit, which is really not that difficult. It's standard electrical stuff. You do have to get a permit for it, and they've been trying to streamline the process, and some of the people you're talking to later on are probably going to be able to answer the questions about the permit process a little better than I could.
So is the charger included in the price of the vehicle, or is it an add-on?
It's an add-on.
It's an add-on.
So the charger, the 110 charger, comes with the car.
Okay.
And in fact, the charger is actually built into the car. This is actually officially called a charging station, which means it's basically a big switch that's connected to 220 volts AC. And so that is an add-on. And the price range has been anywhere from $750 on up to $3,000, depending upon where you buy it.
Wow.
And the really fancy ones have all kinds of transponders on them so that they can tell the company, how long you've been charged and feed stuff back to your smartphone so that you know all these details. But it really doesn't need to be that tricky, and the $700 one is more than enough, and they should only charge $300. That's silly what they're charging for these things, because it's I know what's in them.
So did you build your own?
Well, it's a little simpler than that, but almost. I actually have a charging station for my current car. Mm-hmm. The only thing is that the plug needs to be slightly different. So instead of what's called an Avcon plug, which is what I use in my car, I want to go to a J1772, which is a round plug that's the new official standard. So I bought the round plug with a cable for $250, and I'll retrofit my existing charging station. I'll just change the cord out.
Great. Now, I was wondering whether the plugs are standardized. We're all dealing with different cell phone plugs, and supposedly they're going to go to a uniform standard on those eventually.
Yeah.
But it appears to me like they've already done that on the vehicles.
Yeah.
The same plug for this new generation of cars?
Yeah, there was a lot of legwork done to try and come up with a standard that everybody could agree on. And the purpose in selecting the J1772 as a standard is that it has the ability to be able to go up to 70 amps. And so you heard me talk about the fact that the level 2 high end is 32 amps. But the ability to be able to go up to 70 amps if you have the infrastructure to be able to support that was the critical piece in getting this particular plug as a standard. The quick charge port is a different plug shape and actually goes above 70 amps. So that's a whole different standard that they're talking about for level 3 charging. But yeah, this Tesla, of course, was ahead of the game. Their car came out before the standard was available, so they do have a different plug, but they're thinking of retrofitting everything to be the J1772.
Well, maybe they can charge the Tesla owners for a slightly different retrofit. Well, my information that I've researched here talks about how if all electric cars were, if all U.S. cars were electric vehicles, we would reduce global warming emissions even on today's mostly coal grid.
Right.
So that's very interesting as someone working with an agency that has targets that have to be met over time. There's targets for, we're supposed to go back to 2000, 2005 by 2030, I believe. And so it seems to me like this could be the answer. Technology could be the answer rather than behavior. That's one of the big debates. You've been in this game for a while. What do you think?
Well, the basic elements of an electric car is that it's so efficient. The ability to be able to put power into a battery and use that to drive the wheels with very little loss in heat or various things. That is the thing that makes it so good in terms of being able to be a transportation option. Refueling it is clean, and if you start down that path, you have the ability to be able to select choices for generating electricity. As I say, every person can make their own choice about where that power comes from, and that's the way it's going to, frankly, drive toward a cleaner and cleaner environment.
So my next guest got a Chevy Volt. Tell me why you got a Nissan.
Okay, yeah. I want a pure battery electric vehicle, and I don't need the kind of range that Elaine needs. She is a doctor, and she has to commute a lot farther on occasion. But the 40-mile window is really good for her. In my case, I actually drive less than that. And for the few times that I go over the hill to Palo Alto to see my mother, I can go one way and take the charging station with me, plug it in at her place, and have enough energy to get home again without any trouble.
So you don't just glide down the hill?
Well, you can. Well, and that's a good question. I mean, do you do with an electric car get energy back when you go down the other side of the hill? But that just extends your range. And in fact, I could probably really closely do a round trip to Palo Alto, but it would be kind of close. So getting a little pick-me-up charge when I'm there is the way to satisfy that.
So your range is about 40 miles?
No, the range is 100 miles.
100 miles.
It actually, if these are all arbitrary numbers based on a 4-mile loop that's down in Southern California that involves stop-and-go, highway, and some hill climbing. When it comes down to it, it's really a 70 to 130 mile range.
And I'm familiar with that just from the hybrid, that the range depends on what kind of driving you're doing.
Sure, just like a gas car would too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking with Will Beckett, who's is going on his 3rd generation of electric vehicle ownership. He's soon to receive his Nissan Leaf, and he's got a background in electrical engineering, so he's been kind of a pioneer in this area. Thank you, Will, for talking to us about your experience with electric vehicles. Next, we'll be talking with Elaine Chu, who is one of the second person in the state to have a Chevy Volt. So stay tuned for Your Town, talking about electric vehicles in the Monterey Bay Area, and we'll be right back.